Why have we come to earth? Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Good morning, and welcome to the Reverend David Living an Hour of Centered Power show. Today we have a very special guest, Coach Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks, and we are going to be talking about the spirituality and the spiritual aspects of football. And so, what the heck is that commotion back there? Who are you? Who are you? Now I know how Bernie Sanders felt in Seattle.
Sorry, Reverend. I didn't mean to disturb the service. I really am sorry, but we're just so excited to be here that the team is just all at Twitter here.
A pig at Twitter?
A pig at Twitter. Pig at Twitter, yes.
I've never seen a twittering pig before.
Well, now you have.
All right.
And she's got
And
great
who are you?
Wi-Fi. Sorry. Thank you. I'm Sue E.
Sui?
E. Yes.
Sui?
Sue E.
Would somebody Febreze this farm girl, please?
I'm Sue
Here.
E. That's for Edwina Eleanor Elizabeth.
Testing 1, 2. Works for me.
Okay, so if you caught that, I'm Sue E. And this is my buddy, Rob Roy Boytoy. And
And
this,
so what the heck are you doing here?
well,
Why have you interrupted my interview with Coach Carroll?
I'm-
Put him on hold, please.
I'm sorry. But we brought our little buddy here, our little friend, Fatima, who's a flying...
Fatima?
No, sorry, Reverend. Sorry, don't listen to him. It's Fatima, and
But she's fat.
she's a
Fat pig.
very special pig. Yeah, she gets fatter as I find more coins, yes.
All right.
And she helps out the endowment fund.
The what?
I adopted her, the endowment fund, and that's a special fund here at
Really?
church. Yes, you should know about that. I know you're new, but
I spend all my time in prayer and meditation. I don't know about these
okay.
things.
Well, we're involved in the more practical side of things, I would say.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know there was a practical side to this church.
You know, that's a different discussion.
Okay.
So Fatima is really excited. She came actually to visit the other little piggies, her little cousins that are out there with Jillian. Hi, Jillian! Good. I'm actually a pig groomer, so I came to make sure that the little piggies were ready to be taken home.
Mm-hmm.
And one way that you can participate in the endowment fund in a very gentle way is you find your loose change in the cup holder or the bottom of the washing machine, or
The other center is all about change, and so
Yeah,
there's probably a lot of loose change
there's
around
probably
here.
loose,
Yeah.
your husband's pockets. Well, you
I don't
wouldn't
have a
have a
husband,
husband, but nor do I. So
But it's okay.
anyway, so we collect. Moving on, we collect this loose change. Fatima and I do.
That's well read. Thank you.
And once a year, she gives up her loose change at the Piggy Reunion, which is coming up on November 15th. So if you want to adopt a piggy, now's a good time. You have a few weeks to fill them up. Mm-hmm. We have a little contest to see which piggy weighs the most. And it's one of the ways, a gentle way to give to the endowment fund. You can also do it through the pledge program, but piggies are pretty fun.
Now, what is this endowment fund again?
Well, endowment fund is an eternal fund that we add to. She's collecting Sacred Principle.
Is that like my principal in the Catholic school in grade school?
No,
She was a sacred
not
principal.
even.
Okay.
This Sacred Principle, it grows as we add donations to it.
Uh-huh.
And it's never touched as far as it's not spent. It just continues to grow, kind of like a field on your farm or maybe on my farm that's never sold. And once a year, we harvest the fruits of the endowment fund. And it benefits various projects here in the church.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well,
What's that Roy doing over there? What's the boy toy doing?
you want to explain yourself, Roy?
Oh, well, I'm going over my bucket list.
Uh-huh.
I know I'm supposed to be paying attention, but this is interesting. You know.
What's in there?
Oh, it's
I've always wanted to know what's on
Lots
Roy's
of
bucket list.
information.
lots of information on the endowment fund, and you can, you know, ever see the tree picture?
I
out
did
in-
see the picture of that tree out there.
Well, there's a bunch of these under there, or you
Under
can,
the tree.
Yeah, and it tells.
Under the old oak tree. Isn't there a song about that?
Yeah. You didn't think of that in advance? Oh, okay.
No?
All right, so when we harvest the crops from our,
Otherwise known as
Farm.
interest and dividends, but go ahead.
yeah, we have bonds, we've sold property, we've done all sorts of stuff over the years. We have an opportunity to give back to the center all the profits. So these new speakers, if anybody hasn't looked recently, we have these brand new speakers. That was part of a gift from the endowment. The microphones for the choir and these other microphones, that's from the endowment.
Tell them about the computers. Tell them about the computers.
Tell them about the computers. Well, the reason the office is working well is we bought brand new computers and software for the office. And we got new blinds so that Luke has something to do during the services. And
Oh, the labyrinth.
the labyrinth, that's right.
Yeah.
We did the seed money to start the labyrinth in the back.
Yeah.
And when I first came here, I can't imagine how many years, decades ago it was, there was nothing but dirt on one side of the back over here. And we had a young man who, he had done something that required community service. So he and I,
You were looking at Dick, but I don't think it was Dick, was it?
no. I would have remembered if it was Dick, because he's one of my soulmates. But he was a young man. He was about 13, 14, and in the rainstorm we dug rocks out to get ready to plant, but we didn't have the money to plant, so we went to the endowment. And all the stuff that goes along this fence here, that's all from the endowment. So
Yeah.
the endowment fund was started many years ago, before I even came, with a little bit of money and seed money, and people like Mary were on the team that created it. And it is a foundation for all of us. It's you creating this place and giving back to yourself by gifts. And some of these gifts, as was said earlier, are gifts that are given in the present. We give to the general fund, which is important, and when we have extra, we give to the endowment, because the endowment never goes away, and it'll be here long after all of us are gone. And there's different ways to continue to give to that. It can create a legacy. That legacy can come from things like life insurance, excess of money that you don't need to leave to your family, that you want to continue to bless other people the way you've been blessed here.
We call that future giving, so you don't have to give out of your current funds. You can give out of future funds. Ooh, that's fun to think about.
It's to create a legacy so that not only do we have the physical legacy, but we want to have a spiritual legacy. And the vision of our center is that we inspire and empower people consciously to live spiritual, fulfilling lives. Now, what better gift can we give than to make sure that's still here when we're gone? So, for the young people, it's a gift to continue. And for us, it's a gift that we and our spirit continue in this wonderful teaching.
Thank you. I know there's that wonderful admonition of planting a tree that you'll never be able to lay under for the shade, so that the future generations can.
Yeah.
So, and with your tree metaphor, that's great for that. So, this Piggy reunion is November the...
November the 15th. It's Fatima's.
This is a Piggy right here, isn't
Yes.
it? Okay. I'm going to do an altar call. I'm going to do an altar call, people. You ready? This Piggy needs...
Sweet.
This Piggy needs a family or a person to love it. Who will take this Piggy home with them and fill it with, and make it fat? That lady right there in the blue. Come on down. Come on down.
Yay! There's another little piggy's been adopted. Be sure to see Jillian in the back.
And do this lady in the black right here? Yes. And is there one more? All right.
Thank you. Fatima is happy. So,
And Mike, in every adoption, there's paperwork, so please fill out the
Yes.
paperwork.
yes.
But it's a lot simpler than certain other adoption
And-
paperwork that might be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a, you got a quote.
I did have a quote. Thank you. Boy toy. I'm going to have fun with this. And the rest of it.
I've been called worse.
From Julia Cameron, who you may know from The Artist's Way. Life is a creative endeavor. It is active, not passive. We are the yeast that leavens our lives into rich, fully baked loaves. When we experience our lives as flat and lackluster, it is our consciousness that is at fault. We hold the inner keys that turn our lives from thankless to fruitful. And so we hold the key to continue this beautiful center as being fruitful. And the Endowment Fund is one of those ways that does that, and we're going to talk about another way in just a moment, but I really appreciate it. Anything more you want to say? Thank you, Bill. All right, thank you very much. Suey and Rob Boytoy. So we'll take a commercial break, get in a few advertisements, pay our bills.
Yes, we're very, very lucky today to have a sponsor given to us by Prairie Home Companion. And that sponsor is Powder Milk Biscuits. Do you know the song? Powder milk biscuits for you, powder milk biscuits for me. Slather on the butter, yummy in your tummy, and you can win a game of rummy. Get yours today. Nancy, I'd like to have you come up and give your announcement, please. She's giving our first announcement.
Good morning. I really appreciate all those people that make announcements because this is not easy. But I'm here on behalf of Shakti St. Michael, who is seeking refuge on the coast away from the smoke in Trinity County. So I'm glad they were able to get out of the smoke. And we would like to invite you to join the Prana Yoga Breathwork on Wednesdays, August 26th through September 30th in the pavilion. I have found it to be a very nurturing and healing process. We work with a breathing technique that accesses deep meditation with Shakti's beautiful music, and it's really quite interesting. She's recorded her music, so we listen to the recording while we go into our deep meditation, and then she goes around and does hands-on healing, which is pretty amazing. She asks that you be willing to connect or to commit to the full 6 weeks. And we do sharing and journaling, and it's a very beautiful, strong group process. So we'd love to have more people there on Wednesday, so feel free to sign up at the desk in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And Reverend Lynn's going to be back with the Sacred Drumming Circle Tuesday, August 25th, 6:30 to 7:30 at the Labyrinth. And there's a lot of people that participate in that. Gives you a really good sense of rhythm in your life. It's a great thing to participate in. The Awareness Bookstore has a table with some 50% off selected items and a lot of new items that you'll want to see. It's a wonderful place to browse and get gifts for your family and friends in the coming months. And then we have the Parking Lot Bazaar coming up in September. As you can see on the center table in the foyer, there are a myriad of ways that you can participate, even for a couple hours here or there. If everyone here signed up for just that, we will just have a marvelous time. Make new friends, even, I know you're going to bring stuff, but you'll probably also take stuff home. So it'll be a fun experience. And then classes start, and I'll talk about that later. Okay.
Well, it's a great segue because we're going to talk about classes right now. So welcome to the second part of the show, the SHU, the really big SHU. And classes are the backbone of what we do here. So there's a minister who gets up and gives an inspirational talk once in a while on Sundays and hopefully inspires you and lifts you. I heard he's decent. But the classes are where we go in and really wrestle with and dive into the principles and the teachings and the application of it month after month and week after week. So I've asked a couple of people who have taken classes, and I'm going to, right in front of my field of vision is Cher Matthews. Come on up to the hot seat here, and I'm going to invite Shari Wyndham to come on up too, if you would. Or to come on down. Come on down. And so, with a microphone, would you share just something or an experience you've had from classes, or how it's applied in your life, your actual real life, not just a nice theory, but does it work?
I do. Oops, is it on? Can you hear me okay?
Nope.
Oh, I got it. I have sort of definitely a practical application of our principles of science of mind. And I was in business management for many, many years and managed a bank. So I was going through classes and I was learning about the law of attraction. And this happened to be at the same time we were at a challenge in our business. The way banking works and the way you get your bonus is by annual growth goals. And we were low on our annual deposit growth goal by $1 million. And this was on December 1st. So my team was a little depressed. No annual bonuses this year. There's no way we're going to meet $1 million in the month of December. It's like Christmas. People are spending their money. And I thought, wait a second, that's not how it works. And so we applied the law of attraction in action in the business place. They didn't really know what we were doing because I didn't really share exactly the principle, but we did the principle, which is the best way to learn. So what I did was I typed up $1 million in text, and it was on every single phone. It was behind every single teller window. It was on every single computer. So that every time they answered the phone or they talked to anyone across the teller line or at new accounts, they asked the question, and by the way, do you have any other deposits anywhere else? It was just such a simple thing to put this idea out into cause and effect. So the year ended, and now we're in January, and we're getting all our year-end reports. And we didn't meet the $1 million deposit growth. We hit it by 1.6 over the goal. All of a sudden, they wanted more information on the law of attraction in action.
Thank you, Cher. Shari.
Is this the right volume?
Hold up, yeah.
You have to put it up here?
There it is.
This is great. Well, there's so much I could share with you today, and mine's not about $1.6 million, but it's about a life enriched and transformed. For many of you know that I lived in a very isolated area after I retired. I went out to Texas to be on my cousin's cattle ranch. And we were 45 miles from the nearest store. And after 8 years of it, I longed for a spiritual home, and I longed for friendship and an opportunity to be inspired by others. So I packed up my car, drove all the way to Redding with a little piece of paper in my pocket. And it said, I wanted to find a yoga class, I wanted to find a spiritual community, and I wanted to find a new home. So off I drove, 1,600 miles. And sure enough, I looked around for a yoga class. And someone said, oh, there's one over there on Hartnell. So I drove over here. I thought, well, I better check that out. And I drove in, and it was a spiritual center, the Center for Spiritual Living. I just want a yoga class, you know? Be careful what your intentions are. So I joined Sue's lovely yoga class, and then I was very curious about this place. So I started coming on Sunday mornings. I didn't really know anyone in this community, and decided to start taking some classes. So I did. I took many of them from Reverend Mary Mitchell, and they were so inspiring to me, and I was so welcomed here. And so pretty soon, my first intention of yoga was fulfilled, and now my spiritual community. But the joy of taking classes, I think, is revealed in this piece. In one of the classes I took with Mary, she wanted us to bring something at the end of the class and share it that was meaningful to us while we were taking the classes, something that reflected what we had learned. Well, I was living at the time in an RV next to the Sacramento, the beautiful river here, and every day or so I would go out and paint pictures. I've been watercoloring for a little while. That's one of the things I did when I was in isolated West Texas on a ranch. And so I began to paint the river and the scenes that I saw there. So at the end of Mary's class, that's what I brought to share with the class, was one represented each week of the class. It was the first time I'd ever even told anyone I painted. And it was the first time I'd ever shared anything except with my great-granddaughter, who always had an order for Nana paint butterflies for me. So I did this, and it was really well received, and that was sort of, okay, that's done. And I continued to take classes, but people started coming up to me and saying, oh, I hear you do watercolor. Well, to make a very long story short, and it evolved into my doing watercolor classes here. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, be careful what you write on that little piece of paper and put in your pocket, because it all may come true. And this is my moment to say thank you all for accepting me into your family. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So the classes aren't just about learning spiritual principles, they're about making connections. They're about having somebody who can pray with you when you're going through a tough time and you're not quite able to do that and stuff. So we have, the reason I'm talking about this is because this fall, in about 3 weeks, we have our fall classes starting up, and I won't steal the announcer's thunder like I did in the first service by talking too much about that or over talking about that, but we do have some wonderful classes coming up in the fall, and I would invite you to take a look at those. And one of the things that was brought up in the first service was, even if you've taken a class before, you're not the same person, and oftentimes the classes are newly presented. And so I know when I was taking classes as when I was first coming in through religious science, I would take foundations 3 and 4 times and then become a teaching assistant. I would take spiritual practice and some of the others several times and deepen and deepen and deepen with the materials. So there's ways that you can do that also if you're interested in that. So just invite you to think about what support you would like in the process of your own spiritual growth and building your own spiritual community. And classes are a great way to do that. So thank you very much for your sharing. And we'll go to commercial break.
As I talked to Garrison this morning, he said, oh, please, you've got to mention our most popular sponsor. Duct tape, duct tape. Duct tape quiets everything. It mends broken parts and it covers broken hearts. You can patch up anything in your life with duct tape. I got on an airplane once, and just as you're stepping onto the plane, I looked at the pilot and the window outside, and there was what I thought was 1,000-mile-an-hour tape around the window, and it was duct tape. Never forget that. I did get on the plane. Yeah, that's great. So classes, we are really excited about our new classes, and if you like Carolyn Miss's book, Entering the Castle, we will be going through the dungeon of the castle in Practical Mysticism, Tuesdays starting September 15th in the morning. Check your program. Diana Johnson will be doing The Essential Ernest Holmes, and if you have an inkling that there's more to Holmes than what you read in the Science of Mind text, this is the class for you. It's edited by Jesse Jennings, his talks, his radio shows, all kinds of things that Ernest Holmes did, and it's very easy to read, but it's very, very profound. So that's a great class on Tuesdays also. And then New Foundations will be taught by our own Reverend David, and that will be Wednesdays starting September 16th. And you know about that class. It is where the ground of this whole philosophy started. And then we have a special class, Spirituality Through Film, with Jamie Weil. She is really into film and digging through the spiritual principles and practices and what these films, special films, mean to us in our life. That'll be really great on Thursdays. And then Reverend Sue is doing practitioner training, Practitioner 1. And if you aren't signed up for it, you can't come. But know it's available. So when you're ready, we have these classes, and Reverend David's doing Practitioner Unit 2. Each one's a year long, well, 9 months long. Very, very powerful, life-changing classes. And then Roy, I have Roy down. Is Roy here? There's Roy, to come up and talk about another special event.
Morning. So I have a different hat on now. This is an announcement about the men's retreat and the men's circle that we have here at the center. On the second and fourth Mondays, we meet in circle from 7 to 8:30. This is a time for men to get together and talk about any issue they want to talk about, and a safe space. We've had people talk about their grandkids. We've had people talk about things they never talked to anybody about. We've had a tear and a lot of laughter and a lot of awareness, and a very safe place where there's no judgment. It's a different way of exploring our spirituality and our place as men in the world. And 30 and above, anybody is welcome. Also, the Men's Circle and the Center present an annual retreat for men. The women have their retreat and we get ours. This year it's going to be October 2nd and 3rd. I'm really excited about it. We have David Zaslow, who's a rabbi up in Ashland, but he is part of a new movement in the Jewish tradition that is very inclusive. They're not an exclusive group. They study Buddhism and Hinduism, and he's very interested in our center and how we approach things. And it'll be Friday night, October 2nd, and Saturday, October 3rd, and there'll be 3 meals, and it's $110 if you pay by September 10th, and $135 after that. The Men's Circle is free, and part of the way that we can help invite other men to come to retreat that can't afford it, we give scholarships with some of the money from this, and we pay the center for the use of the building. So it's right here. It's great food, great camaraderie. There's wonderful issues this year. It's Brothers Who Love and Brothers Who Hate, a journey into the heart of manhood, and there'll be stories from the Old Testament that are told in a story fashion, which is one of the easiest ways for us to learn. And one of the things that has been taught to me at this center is that there are analogies for what goes in our lives, and that's what this is all about. And we hope that you'll attend. Thank you.
For the last set of interviews I want to do, I'm going to invite up Reverend Sue and Diana Wolfstead, and we're going to talk about the concept of seva. And I'll wait till they get up here, and then we'll have that conversation. Meanwhile, I have to say that I'm seeing this whole new side of Mary with the Garrison Keillor advertising songs that I've never known before. So thank you for making that fun. So the first service we had up Sherry Miller because people said that they confused Reverend Sue and Sherry. So fortunately, Sherry today was wearing all black, and Sue was wearing all white, so that worked at that time. And I don't think too many people confuse Diana and Reverend Sue, except they're both wonderful, very, very heart-based people. And so I wanted to invite you to talk about, Reverend Sue, if you could just kind of introduce a little bit about this concept of what's it called again?
Seva.
Seva.
Yeah, Seva.
Does that have to do with the endowment fund, Seva Big?
Yeah, save big. Actually, Reverend David knows how sensitive I am about the word seva itself, because it is the foundation of our center, and it started so many years ago when the Goldens were here leading our center and starting so many of the movements here that we celebrate today. But the biggest one was seva. And I think you all understand what it feels like when you volunteer for something, when you sign up and you feel like you do your time. Seva is so much deeper than that. Seva is at the very heart of giving from yourself without any agenda in your heart at all. You just want to give because there's a call in your soul to do something deeper, to do something in service to something greater. And Dr. James Golden at the time had a spiritual teacher that really impressed upon him the value of this, and it can be in such a humble way that scrubbing a toilet or preparing the foods. And so the Goldens brought this to us in retreat form, and each one of us had the opportunity to serve one another through cooking, through setting the place at the table, to doing what would seem like a chore became an opportunity of grace. And so, and it became a bonding of family, a bonding of community. And so when we speak now of this community that we have here and why our hearts are so deeply invested here and why we get so sensitive about certain ideas about this center, it's because the seva of our heart has been offered here to God. And that's what the word means. It means in Sanskrit, in service to the one, in service to God. So the opportunity that we are always inviting every one of you to do when you become a member or a friend here, find a team where you can say, may I belong and may I serve. May I serve. I want to know, I want to open my heart. I want to be the conduit of this gift, of this spiritual practice called seva. And it is what has built this place. It's the Shakti, it's the Bhuti, it's all of the good spiritual dust. Everything we've built upon is from this seva. And the Queen of Seva sits right next to me here. I have to... to the bulletin boards, to the book sales, to the landscaping, to the hottest days. She was here yesterday after a long meeting And I was talking to her, and she's dripping with sweat, and she still looked so beautiful because she was radiating Seva. So to you we bow, and I'd like you to share.
Oh, thank you so much. Community is what is important to me. 19 years ago, when we brought our family to this center, as new as many of you sitting in the chairs today, we did not know a soul. We had heard about this wonderful place that connected hearts and minds in a loving way, a community that we wanted to explore. We were new. We began to take classes, and one of the many spiritual practices that we learned about in these classes was the concept of seva, selfless service to God. And for me, that practice is what spoke to my soul. It's what flowed through me so easily, with such grace. So I set aside my fears for getting involved, and I began to step forward when invitations were given to do this or do that, or get involved in this particular event or that. It started in such small ways, but I opened myself up to participate. And oh my gosh, when you open your heart and you begin to get involved, the love pours back to you in so many ways. Over the years, I started doing more and more. I took on the landscape when the leader left and moved to Hawaii. I've since became a member of the board of directors a couple times, doing tours of duty there. But for me, seva is coming to this sacred space many times a week and just giving my heart to it. Whatever needs to be done, if I have a few minutes, I put forward the effort to participate. And I meet new people. Some of my closest friends today have come from the spiritual practice of seva. So I really encourage you and your children to step up, to look at the invitations, to say yes, to surrender, participate, and your lives will be enriched beyond anything you can imagine. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, a quality of spirituality is that you can do the same thing. You can do something with a consciousness, and you can do something with an unconsciousness. Have you ever noticed? And seva brings that. We do it with consciousness to whatever we do. And so it's a deep spiritual practice. I was mentioning the first service, the Brother Jerome, who was a Christian mystic, wrote this wonderful book on mysticism. And he was the dishwasher for the monastery. You know, all the other monks had high positions and stuff like that. And he was the guy who would peel the potatoes and wash the dishes, you know, and work in the kitchen, and brought that consciousness to it. And yet his consciousness elevated. In Zen practice, you're often given a Zen koan by the teacher, and then you go out and about your business in the monastery, which includes usually washing the latrines and raking the leaves in the garden and just the standard stuff of everyday maintenance, but you're doing it again in that conscious way. And so I know that Diana's husband Roy talks about, wherever he went to, he talks about that one of his favorite meditative practices is weed whacking, you know, out here on the grounds. He'll just take the weed whacker and just, you know, imagine that that's taking out everything that doesn't belong in his own consciousness, and he's whacking out his own weeds internally, so as it's happening in the external. So seva is this wonderful, deep spiritual practice. It's far beyond just being a volunteer, because I've done both, and it's a much deeper practice. So I invite you, just like the classes and the giving we talked about in the first segment, to play with this process of seva. As I think Reverend Sue mentioned, there's a number of opportunities out there to sign up for the parking lot sale, which can be done again with one consciousness, or it can be done with a spiritual, deep, wonderful, sacred consciousness. And so I invite you to play with that. And there are other opportunities. I know you can see Diana for, as Reverend Sue introduced, you know, just about any area of the church to sign up for landscape if you want to play in with nature and things like that. I saw Sherry Miller is still here. If you'll stand for a moment. Sherry's in charge of the cleaning team of keeping the building itself internally beautiful and clean and in that sacred consciousness for us. So, and there's plenty of other, the sound team back there is a Save It team if you want to play with that. So plenty of places to play, the Children's Church, and you have something else to say. Oh.
We have somebody in the audience.
We have somebody in the audience. Jean.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
From my ears, I heard beautiful descriptions of the flower of Seva. And I was wondering, as new people, and I include myself in this, who more carry the spirit of doing time, like a volunteer, you go and you do something because you think, oh, you should, or whatever. Is there anything that this church offers that might be an organized, almost like a coaching or a mentoring arrangement, so that as you come, sometimes you're doing a job here, a Seva job, that you're very much on your own, you're alone. You're just bringing your own volunteer mind or your effort to save a mind. You bring it, but there isn't anything that's moving you forward that you don't come up with inside yourself. But is there any kind of like a coaching, mentoring, grouping that we offer, maybe cyclically or something like that, where as a Sevite, you could actually get together with people who can teach you and help you find more Seva in you, not more activity, but more Seva in you?
So we actually had a class that was scheduled for earlier this month that didn't take off, but we're going to do it again, which Diana and Marilyn Miller, our practitioner, we're going to teach, and we'll be doing that. If people are interested in that, please let us know, and we'll set that up at a time that works for most people, just to start to do that coaching and do what is the consciousness behind it. Yes.
Another opportunity that you might consider is twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, we do an all-center Seva Day. That's where everyone is invited to come to the center from 9 to noon, and we do a myriad of work here. You could dabble in the garden for a while. You could hook up with Sherry to learn about what needs to be done on the cleaning team. Guys, if you like to build fences, you can work with the building team and learn what opportunities are there. We do this all together. We open it with a spiritual mind treatment. We celebrate at the end with a closing treatment and a beautiful brunch. It's a good way to step forward and dabble in Seva and meet different people. So I encourage you to do that, and then hopefully we will be able to, Jean, I love your suggestion, offer a class where you can go more deep into the conscious spiritual practice of Seva.
Okay.
If I could.
Yes. They might not have had you turned on there. That's...
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing about your question was a beautifully expressed idea about, well, how do I, if we're inviting ourselves into that, how do I feel it if I'm by myself? And it's just like that commercial, what's in your pocket, or, what's in your consciousness. So you bring to the idea before you, you think, well, I'm going to just come in and vacuum. And you could come in and go, oh my God, it's such a big place, and the plugs are all in the wrong spot, and my back, and you could be coming in with this attitude, and then it would mirror back to you the whininess. And then you're thinking, but I'm preparing this for the sanctuary of the souls that are going to be coming in. And so you start to realize, what am I doing? What is my offering of myself? And you start to mirror back to lifting your consciousness to receive that grace, to know that the work that you're doing is service to the one. And so it's a constant reflection, a constant prayer of the heart in how you serve. So thank you.
Yesterday in the leadership team meeting, we heard a story of a monastery that had been a long history but began to decline and was down to just 4 monks. And the head of the monks decided to go over to a nearby rabbi who sometimes had a hut in the woods and would sometimes be in there in prayer. And so they kind of knew that he was in prayer there. So he went over to talk to the rabbi and just, see what, if he had any ideas. And the rabbi, offered him tea and sat down and said, he shared, how his community was diminishing and like that. And the rabbi said, same thing with my community, it's awful. It's just the young people today, they don't seem to have the deep spiritual interest and like that. And so eventually the abbot, began to leave and thanked the rabbi for his time and his tea. And he had just walked out and closed the gate to the rabbi's hut. And the rabbi said, by the way, one of you is the Messiah. Closed the door. And so the abbot is sitting going, what? And so he was back to the abbey and to the four, the other three monks who were there. And he says, the rabbi wasn't much help. He says, we didn't have, we spent a bunch of time together, but on the way out, he said something really weird. He said, one of us is the Messiah. And they began to think about that. Well, if it's so-and-so, I better treat him better than I've been treating him, And, well, if it's me, I better be on better behavior myself, than what I've been. And so it was this idea of, and that began to have the idea of sacred service. They began to recognize the one, the Messiah-ness, the consciousness within each other, and began to serve each other and themselves and take better care of it. And pretty soon, as the story goes, the abbey began to attract people, and the consciousness was reflected outward and began to grow and thrive again. So it's that consciousness of treating each other as though, we call it namaste consciousness. The God within me bows to the God within you, or recognizes the God within you. And so that consciousness where we treat each other and in that sacred service. So thank you very much. So speaking of wonderful consciousness, we have wonderful conscious musicians over here who are going to sing us a wonderful song, I hope.
To love, serve.